Okay, I'm going to show you how to do a gusset heel, is what I can find that they are calling it, and how to do that with the sock. And what that means is that you can have a pattern that goes all the way to the bottom of the heel rather than having to stop somewhere in here to do short rows. I won't lie, this is more difficult than the short row heel, but it does give you an entirely different effect. This is what the bottom looks like. It can give you a general idea of what your look is going to be. I'm going to do it on a wider gauge loom so it's easier to see what we're doing, and in a colored yarn. So no matter what you're doing, because I'm going to show you how to do this in sizing, no matter what you're going to do, you're going to divide the loom in half. Now I'm working off of a 24 peg loom. You're going to divide that in half, so it's going to be 12 pegs. You're going to be working between those 12 pegs, and this is going to be the heel over here. Now if you're doing a foot mold, like I like to do so often and show how to do that, you still are going to use a foot mold to do this. So I know that I need 4 pegs for my heel. Well, if you divide up the 12 pegs, with considering the 4 in the middle, then of course you have 4 on either side. Now this is going to tell you the pegs on either side of your heel count on your pegs. Is going to tell you how many rows you need to do. So I'm going to have to do 8 rows because there's 8 pegs total on either side of my heel on the number of pegs I'm wanting to use on my heel, as you can see. So there's 4 pegs over here, 4 pegs over here, means 8 rows. Now I'm just going to show you doing an E-wrap, but again, you can do whatever you want to do. This is a flat knit with a purl. So, and I'm doing the same technique on the fine gauge. So, divide your loom in half. That is your back, that is your heel half there. Then you're going to take your foot mold or whatever and figure out how many pegs are going to make up the heel, which is 4. Then I'm going to make that the center and see how many pegs are on either side of the heel. And I have 8, which means I'm going to do 8 rows. And if you have 10, or if you have, say you have 10 on one side, 10 on the other side, you're going to do 20 rows. And so that's how it's going to work. So you're going to do 8 rows back and forth between those 12 pegs. This is going to be your heel flap, is what they call it. So there's row 1. And then what you're going to do on the end when you go to back, you're going to skip that first one and E-wrap the next one. Okay. So skip peg 12 and E-wrap over. That's row 2. Skip your first peg and E-wrap over to your 12th. That's row 3. Skip that first peg, E-wrap over, so you're E-wrapping 11. Basically, you're slipping the outer pegs, and this will give you a very distinctive stitch to pull up when you go to pull them back up later on, because we're doing the flap right now. And again, skip the first one, E-wrap over, Okay, I have my 8 pegs, 8 rows. Okay. Now, what you're going to do, as you have 2 options, you can take 2 stitch holders if you want and place those 2 or 4 stitches on a stitch holder if you'd like, or you can cast them off. Okay. It depends on if you want to mess with that or not. I'll show both ways. I'm going to take my 4 outer stitches here and place them onto a stitch holder. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this is just one option of doing it. I didn't want to do that with my fine gauge. There's too many stitches to try to keep up with, so I just cast mine off. I'm going to show you both ways. So those 4 pegs you calculated on each side of your heel, you're going to cast off. That's the same with any other loom you're doing. However many pegs were on either side of your heel peg count, cast off. And I'm doing a real light cast off so I can make sure that I get those stitches easily back on. Okay. Now I cast off the 4 over here. So if you choose to do the cast off method, you're going to follow this. If you're going to choose to do your stitch holder, which you'll need 2, you're going to do this method over here. So I'm going to E-wrap those 3. Last 3. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is take my last stitch off and put it on top. And you're going to E-wrap that together. And E-wrap to the end. Then if you're doing the cast off method, you're going to be pulling up. You see there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're going to pull up that one and put it back on the peg. Then you're going to E-wrap over. Then what you're going to do is you're going to add the next stitch onto the peg if you're doing the stitch holder method. And then you're going to E-wrap over. If you did the cast off method, there's 1, 2, 3. We're going to pull up the next one, which is that one. E-wrap over. You're doing the stitch holder method, you take that off, the next stitch off, put it on there, and you wrap over. Okay, there's 1 and 2. So we're going to pull up that one. Put it back on. And E-wrap. Here's my last stitch. To take off and put on, doing the stitch holder method. E-wrap over. Then you're going to take the last cast on, which is that one, cast off, and then you're going to E-wrap over. You have now just completed what is technically your heel, okay? And you'll see that right there. There's your heel. Well, you have the space in here you need to put back onto the loom, okay? And you should be counting 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to put that one, and then that one, and that one, and then that one. And that puts those back on. Okay. Now you're going to be finding your 4 over here. 1, 2, 3. And you have a partial purple yellow one, it looks like here. Let's see. It should be pretty obvious. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to pick this peach one up. Put it back on. Then the blue one. And then the yellow one. And then the purplish one. Okay, that is where you go and you'll start your gusset. And that's where you're reconnected to the rest of the sock, which you will see is right here. This is where my reconnection happened. Okay. And you can see the difference right here where the connection of the heel is the short rows to do the heel. Okay. At this point, you're going to knit, E-wrap those, then E-wrap around. Okay. At this point, you're just going to go back to doing whatever stitch pattern you're doing for the front half and the back half. And I'm just going to do a few E-wrap rows so that you can kind of see what's going on there. And that's what's going to work up your gusset area, is just E-wrapping or doing whatever stitches you're doing from there. And that's how you go about customizing it to whatever loom you're doing. It's on the half base, and as I say, the foot mold, however big of a heel you're using. So that, as you can see, you're reconnected here, and there's your heel, and it goes straight down. So what it's going to look like if you're doing a stitch, like I did a rip stitch on the back, and then I chose to continue doing an E-wrap down, and then my top section is going to have an E-wrap a little bit on either side of the front. then a purl, and then a braid, so that you see that's what's going on there. And so that's going to continue down, and you're just going to continue doing that kind of patterning and everything. So that's basically how you do a gusset heel, is what I'm going to call it. So that's how you do the gusset heel, and that's how you adjust it to whichever loom you want to use. And it's all based on halves, however many pegs you're going to need for your heel, and then that's however many pegs on either side of those pegs, and that's how many rows you do. And then you cast off how many of those pegs on either side, and then you either cast them off or you put them on a stitch holder. I don't like using stitch holders too much. It makes it a little easier to drop a stitch. But if you want to do the stitch holder method, you can. If you want to do the cast off method, you'll cast off A-wrap to the end, cast off over here, and that gets you into the middle. So that's how I do it if I do the cast off method. Stitch holder method doesn't really make much of a difference. You'll want to at least get yourself A-wrapped to the 4 pegs in the middle. And that way you don't actually have to even cut your yarn with that technique either. So that's it. That's how you do the gusset heel.